What you're about to watch is being described as one of the most dramatic moments in recent congressional oversight history. A sitting FBI director, a decorated military lawyer turned congressman, and a 7-word audio clip that allegedly connects the highest levels of American law enforcement to a politically charged burial order. Whether this moment reshapes the Epstein investigation narrative or becomes a flashpoint in an already fractured political environment, the legal, constitutional, and institutional stakes could not be higher. Here's what happened, and more importantly, what it means.
I'm going to play for you a video clip of what Michael Wolff said Epstein told him was in the safe and what he showed the author was in this safe.
38 seconds. That is how long Kash Patel sat completely motionless after Ted Lieu pressed play on the device, sitting on the desk in front of him. Not trembling, not the jaw tightening or the hand moving to the table edge. Motionless. The way a person goes motionless when they hear something they believed was gone forever playing back through a congressional hearing room speaker at 11:22 in the morning. 38 seconds that ended not with an explanation, but with a single word from Kash Patel that told everyone watching everything they needed to know. If this is the first time you're seeing this channel, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because what happened this morning is exactly the kind of moment we cover before anyone else does. Ted Lieu is not a typical congressman. He holds a law degree from Georgetown and a computer science degree from Stanford, but the credential that matters here is the one he rarely leads with. He is a veteran of the United States Air Force Judge Advocate General's Corps, a JAG officer, a military lawyer. For years, Lieu conducted interrogations and prosecuted cases in environments where the rules of evidence are absolute. He learned that the most powerful moment in any interrogation is not the question, it is the evidence the witness does not know you have. And he learned that you never reveal it until the witness has committed on the record, under oath, to a version of events the evidence will destroy. Lieu spent 7 weeks preparing for this morning. His staff was under strict instruction not to discuss what he was bringing. The device on his desk when he sat down, a standard digital audio player, was logged into the chamber as a legislative research tool. No one on the Republican side, no one on Patel's legal team, and no one in the press gallery knew what was on it. That is the thing about audio. You cannot redact it in advance if you do not know it exists. The hearing was House Judiciary Committee oversight. Kash Patel had been at the witness table since 9:34, flanked by 2 attorneys. The first 90 minutes were familiar. Immigration statistics, counterterrorism operations, budget requests. Patel deflected each challenge with practiced fluency. He looked, as he always looks by the second hour, like a man who has decided he will survive this the way he has survived every other hearing. At 11:19 a.m., Chairman Jordan recognized Lieu for 5 minutes. Lieu stood. He had no folder, no document stack, just the audio device. A single printed transcript page face down to his right, and the posture of a man who has been waiting 7 weeks for this exact moment. Director Patel, Lieu began, his voice carrying the controlled, almost clinical tone JAG officers develop from years of building prosecutorial records. I want to talk to you about a conversation, specifically a conversation you had on January 31st, 2025, 11 days after you became FBI director. He paused. Do you recall that date? Patel shifted fractionally in his seat. The small movement a body makes when a date lands with more weight than a date should. Congressman. I have conversations on many dates in the course of my duties. I would need more context to identify any specific exchange. I will give you context, Lieu said. On January 31st, 2025, at approximately 8:14 in the evening, you were inside the J. Edgar Hoover building. According to building security access logs, you were in a conference room on the 7th floor designated for director-level sensitive discussions. You remained in that room for 47 minutes. Do you have any recollection of that evening? Patel's right hand moved to the edge of the table. His senior attorney leaned in. Patel did not look at him. Congressman. The specifics of internal discussions conducted in sensitive facilities are not something I can characterize in an open setting. I am not asking you to characterize the discussion, Liu said. I am asking whether you recall being in that building, in that room, on that evening. Yes or no? The pause lasted 4 seconds. I was in the building frequently during that period. I cannot confirm or deny the specific location you are describing. Liu looked at Chairman Jordan. For the record, I am playing a 34-second audio recording obtained by my office through a confidential source and authenticated by 2 independent forensic audio analysts whose certifications have been submitted to this committee. Patel's lead attorney was immediately on his feet. Mr. Chairman, I must object to the introduction of any recording without prior disclosure to opposing counsel and without established chain of custody. Chairman Jordan's response landed before the objection was finished. Congressman Liu has submitted authentication documentation to this committee. The objection is noted and overruled. You may proceed. Liu pressed play. The audio was clean, no distortion, no background noise. The acoustic signature of a room with soundproofing, and a voice that every person in that chamber recognized immediately because it had been in every hearing for 15 months. Kash Patel's voice. Saying 7 words that detonated in that room like nothing any of them had ever heard in a congressional proceeding. Trump told me to bury it. All of it. Liu pressed stop. 38 seconds. That is how long the chamber held that silence. Kash Patel sat at the witness table without moving, without speaking, without looking at his attorneys or at Liu or at any of the cameras pointed directly at his.
Let's pause here, because what just happened carries enormous constitutional weight, regardless of where you stand politically. Under the separation of powers doctrine, the FBI is structured to operate independently from direct presidential instruction on active investigations. If an FBI director received and acted on a directive from the executive branch to suppress an investigation, that would represent a potential violation of obstruction statutes, a serious federal offense. It's also worth noting, congressional hearings are not courts of law. Evidence introduced here does not carry the same procedural safeguards as a criminal trial. The authentication of this recording by 2 forensic analysts is significant, but independent judicial review would be the true legal test. Here's the critical question for you as a viewer. Does a witness's refusal to confirm or deny a recording, combined with a Fifth Amendment invocation, constitute meaningful evidence of guilt in your mind? Or is it simply a legal strategy? Think about that as we continue.
His hands were flat on the table. His breathing was visible, shallow and rapid. The kind of breathing that happens when a body is processing something the mind has not yet caught up to. Director Patel, Liu said, his voice carrying the flat, steady authority of someone who was a JAG prosecutor before he was a politician. I am going to ask you one question. I want you to think very carefully before you answer. You are under oath. Everything you say in the next 30 seconds will be entered into the congressional record permanently. He looked directly at Patel. Is the voice on that recording your voice? Patel opened his mouth, closed it. His senior attorney rose immediately. Congressman, my client cannot authenticate or respond to a recording of unknown provenance in a public setting without the opportunity to review the full context. Liu turned to the attorney with the patience of someone who has handled 100 courtrooms. Counselor, I asked your client whether that is his voice. That is a yes or no question about something he has known his entire life. He turned back to Patel. Is that your voice, Director Patel? The silence that followed was different from the 38 seconds. This was the silence of calculation. If he says yes, he confirms the statement. If he says no, he challenges 2 independent forensic certifications already before the committee. If he says nothing, the silence answers for him in every clip that will air in the next 72 hours. Congressman, Patel said finally, his voice a register lower than at any point that morning. I am not going to comment on the authenticity of a recording I have not had the opportunity to review with counsel in an appropriate setting. Liu let that answer sit in the air for exactly 3 seconds. Then he picked up the face-down transcript page and turned it over. A certified transcript of the 34-second recording, authenticated by the same two forensic analysts, a timestamp, a date stamp, and a room identifier corresponding to Conference Room 7C of the J. Edgar Hoover Building. He paused. The room you just told this committee you cannot confirm or deny being in on January 31st. The recording was made in a room you cannot remember, in a building you were in constantly, on a date that moved your hand to the edge of this table the moment I mentioned it. Director Patel. This recording has been submitted to the DOJ Inspector General, the FBI Office of Professional Responsibility, and the Senate Intelligence Committee as of this morning. 7 words. Trump told me to bury it. If those 7 words are your words, spoken in an FBI facility 11 days into your tenure, then every congressional testimony you have given about independent judgment, about decisions free from political pressure, about the FBI operating without executive branch interference, every word of that testimony is a lie told under oath. He paused. On the evening of January 31st, 2025, did someone from the Trump administration tell you to bury the Epstein investigation? The chamber was absolutely silent. Patel's lead attorney rose. Congressman. At this time, my client invokes his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination and will not answer that question or any subsequent questions derived from the recording you have introduced. Lieu nodded once. Slowly. He looked at the cameras. The FBI director just invoked the Fifth Amendment in response to a question about whether Trump told him to bury the Epstein investigation. He let that land. He could have said no. He has been saying no in various bureaucratic constructions for 15 months. Today, when I played 7 words in his own voice, he invoked the fifth. He closed the transcript. The American people can draw their own conclusions. He looked at Chairman Jordan. I have no further questions. But I do have a formal request. I am requesting that this committee subpoena the complete 47-minute audio record of the January 31st conference room session inside the J. Edgar Hoover Building. All communications between Director Patel and any member of the executive branch during his first 30 days in office, and all documents related to any directive issued by Director Patel regarding the Epstein investigation within 72 hours of January 31st, 2025. The gavel came down. Within 11 minutes, the 7 words were everywhere. Clipped, looped, captioned, shared across every platform. Legal experts on every network said the same thing. You do not take the fifth in response to a recording unless the words are yours. A denial costs nothing. The fifth costs everything. By evening, both forensic analysts had given their certifications on camera, spectral analysis, voice-print comparison. The recording had not been altered, compressed, or synthesized. It was Kash Patel's voice. January 31st, 2025. Conference Room 7C, 7th floor, FBI headquarters. Now let me be clear about what those 7 words actually contain. Trump told me. That is a direct statement of instruction from the president to the FBI director. It confirms that Patel received a directive from the executive branch regarding an ongoing investigation. To bury it, not to close it, not to conclude it, not to determine that further investigation was unwarranted. To bury it. That is not the language of legitimate prosecutorial discretion. That is the language of concealment. All of it. Not specific files. Not particular leads. Everything. The directive was not surgical. It was comprehensive. And the timing matters. January 31st. 11 days into Patel's tenure, whatever instruction he received came during his first 2 weeks in office, which means the decision to suppress the Epstein investigation was not the result of months of independent review. It was a directive received almost immediately upon taking office. The location matters too. Conference Room 7C, 7th floor of the J. Edgar Hoover Building. That is not where administrative meetings happen. That is where the director's office is, where the most sensitive discussions occur, where decisions affecting national security and ongoing investigations are made. It is a controlled environment. Access is logged. The rooms are soundproofed. Whatever conversation happened there on January 31st was a scheduled meeting in a secure location, and someone made a recording of it. If you have made it this far, hit the like button right now. This is exactly the kind of story that disappears unless people keep it visible. Lieu obtained it through a confidential source. That means someone inside the FBI made the judgment that what Patel said in that room was so contrary to the Bureau's mission that it had to be disclosed. When Patel invoked the Fifth Amendment, he was not saying "I don't remember" or "I cannot comment on classified matters." He was saying answering this question truthfully would incriminate me, because if the answer was no, Patel would have said no. Saying no costs nothing. It ends the line of questioning. But if the answer is yes, then Patel has admitted under oath that he received a directive from the president to obstruct a federal investigation. That is a crime, and that is why he took the Fifth. That contrast is what makes this moment irreversible. For 15 months, Patel has insisted that the FBI operates independently and that investigative decisions were based on evidence, not political pressure. But when confronted with a recording of his own voice saying "Trump told me to bury it," he could not repeat those denials. He took the Fifth, and the forensic authentication makes it impossible to dismiss as fabricated. The subpoena request will be voted on within 48 hours. If it passes, the complete 47-minute recording will be compelled. If the FBI refuses to produce it, that refusal will confirm the recording contains additional evidence the Bureau does not want made public. But even without the subpoena, the 7 words are now part of the permanent congressional record. Authenticated. Undisputed. Impossible to erase. The investigation was not closed because the evidence ran out. It was buried because the president said to bury it, and the person who buried it just took the Fifth when asked to explain why. Subscribe and turn on notifications now because the subpoena vote happens within 48 hours. When the full 47-minute recording surfaces, you need to be here. 7 words, 38 seconds of silence, and a Fifth Amendment invocation that answered the question Kash Patel refused to answer himself. Trump told me to bury it. All of it. He could not deny it. The forensic analysts authenticated it.
What we witnessed today, if verified through full judicial and independent institutional review, would represent one of the most consequential moments in FBI oversight history. A 7-word audio clip, a Fifth Amendment invocation, a subpoena request for 47 minutes of recorded conversation. Each element alone is significant. Together, they form a narrative that will dominate legal, political, and media discourse for weeks to come. But here's what responsible viewership demands. Wait for the full record. Forensic authentication is a start, not a conclusion. Congressional hearings are powerful platforms, but they are not courtrooms. The subpoena process, independent judicial review, and cross-examination of the source chain will determine whether this moment becomes history or a cautionary tale about how fast unverified audio can reshape public perception. So here's our question for you. Do you believe congressional hearings are the right venue for evidence of this magnitude, or should this have gone directly to a federal court? Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you value fact-based, context-driven analysis that respects your intelligence, like this video, share it with someone who needs the full picture, and subscribe for more breakdowns on the stories that actually matter.
And the Fifth Amendment confirmed it.